Time now for Inside Out as we're joined by SNY's MLB insider Andy Martino from the general manager meetings in California. And a new name has emerged in the Mets general manager search. Andy, what can you tell us about Adam Chromie and how serious a candidate is he?
Well, the top line there, Eamon, is that he's a very serious candidate. It's certainly fair to call him the leading candidate at this point. The Mets haven't made him an offer at this moment that we're talking to each other, but I wouldn't be stunned if that came in the next couple of days. Ultimately, it's Steve Cohen's decision, and my understanding is he hasn't made it yet. But this is somebody who was a member of the Washington Nationals front office for a decade. He left as an assistant GM in 2017. I went to pursue a legal career at a law firm in Pittsburgh. Not a lot of information about this guy in the industry. It was a name, we knew there was a mystery candidate, but it was a name that surprised just about everybody when it got around. But someone with a good reputation, is a good guy, good collaborator, an administrator type who's done a lot of arbitration and some background in analytics, not a scouting necessarily or player development guy by trade. And that's what we know. And we know the Mets like him, so that's significant.
Andy, in baseball years, how long would you guess is being out of the game for 4 years?
Well, that's a great question. These 4 years are significant in that we've seen the game change dramatically. We've seen the game become a sport where Brian Snitker, even as an old-school type manager, will take out Ian Anderson after Anderson's pitching a no-hitter in a World Series game because it's the right move analytically. The game is changing very, very quickly. But this is someone who's young, considered intelligent, adaptable, and he's kept his relationships in the game. I talked to one assistant GM today who says, yeah, he's a friend of mine. We talk. He's a smart guy. So I don't think that issue about his absence would be particularly a problem.
All right, now Sandy Alderson discussed the elephant in the room Tuesday and candidates not wanting to come to New York and work for the Mets. Andy, this did not become a tough town overnight, and several other New York franchises have hired new executives recently. So why is this now an issue once again for the Mets?
I think this is a tough one to summarize, and Alderson had to try to do it because he was obviously asked a bunch of fair questions about the process. But at the end of the day, it comes down to each individual candidate. I spoke to Billy Beane a couple weeks ago. He wanted to work for Alderson and Steve Cohen, but he couldn't justify that to his family. Or there may be an assistant GM in a smaller market who's making good money there and doesn't feel a lot of pressure and doesn't feel the need to take on that responsibility. There's some people that really wanted to come here and take this job, and Alderson and or Cohen have not been interested in those people. So it really comes down to all of these names that we've heard and that have floated and that haven't worked out. They've all got their own individual story. And I do think in some cases people didn't want to come to New York. And you obviously don't want somebody who doesn't want to come here if you're the Mets.
Andy Martino, thanks for the time from California. We appreciate you joining us here on Geico Sports Night.
All right, thanks, Eamon.